To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into their hearts, except that no one can find out the work that God does from the beginning to end. Being the end of 2020 and the start of 2021, I've been thinking a lot about what I learned this year, what happened this year, how I grew this year, did I grow this year, asking myself different questions and just evaluating the year in general. And honestly, I felt like this year has involved a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to weep, a time to mourn. This year has been one of the hardest years of my life, mainly due to the fact that my dad passed away this last January on the 18th. And it just kind of changed this entire year and what we thought would take place. That being said, I can recall an older man talking about winter, and he was sharing how it's so cold and it's so frigid and there's tons of snow and there's tons of ice, and yet that's actually a good thing because it is what provides the moisture in the ground for this following spring, for everything to grow. And I find for myself that despite the fact that this year did have a lot of ups and downs and it had a lot of beautiful moments as well, that perhaps something that can make seasons that do feel more wintry and more bitter and more harsh, more bearable, is the fact that seeds are being planted, lessons are being learned, or things are being taught. Maybe even letters are being put together that you'll later be able to look back on and see were a sentence written by God himself. And perhaps that all makes it a bit easier. So all that being said, I do feel like I have learned a lot this year, that I'm coming away a deeper person, that perhaps I'm coming away with a greater understanding of life and compassion and being less judgmental of people who are going through struggles and hard times. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the things that I've learned, for the things I'm still learning, for the ability to be able to relate to a group of people that before I had no clue how to relate to, and I still don't quite know how to relate to, but I'm grateful for those things. And yet I'm also grateful for a new year with new challenges. I hope that will be not as rough as this past year's challenges, but nonetheless lessons to learn and things to grow in, and a bright and vibrant spring ahead. So, dear friend, I know that this was not just a hard year for me. I know this was a hard year for so many people, and so many people had it even more difficult than I. And yet, despite that, I hope that there were lessons that you learned and things that you grew in. And for myself, just realizing the importance of family and relationships and drawing the people that you love so dearly close to you and developing those relationships and being intentional in those relationships and realizing how incredibly valuable life is and people are and your family is, and maybe cutting loose with some of those things that are really a distraction, that are really just stress, that are really just needless worry, and clinging to the things that actually deeply matter. I wanted to say while I was on here also that a huge highlight of this year has been you all of the comments that I've received that have just been so kind and so encouraging. And it's so sweet because every time I receive a comment from one of you that says, "This video encouraged me," it encourages me. And so thank you so very much for that. And I'm so happy I actually just reached 1,500 subscribers as of today, which is just mind-blowing because it took me over a year and a couple of months to reach that many, and all of a sudden this channel is growing. And thank you so very much, and thank you for those comments and for that encouragement throughout this past year. I'm so grateful for you all. I hope you have a fabulous week. I hope this video was encouraging, and I pray 2021 is a blessing, is a year of growth, and is perhaps a year when you see the lush greenery around you, that perhaps 2020 was just the snow and the hardship and the bitter cold leading up to perhaps a very bountiful harvest and perhaps much growth.